Time. How would the Conservatives balance the national books? It is a question they're keen to be seen to be tackling it head on at their conference in Manchester this week. And in his speech today, the Shadow Chancellor, Sir Mel Stride, is going to promise no more pretending we can keep spending money we simply don't have. £47 billion, he's going to say, can be cut over the next Parliament. And he is on the line from the conference now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
How? Set it out, Sir Mel.
OK, so principally, a big part of it will be welfare reform. We have a welfare budget that is spiralling out of control. And we believe there are substantial savings there, particularly around lower level mental health issues and getting people into work that have those conditions rather than being on benefits. The size of the civil service has grown very rapidly by over 35% since 2016. We think that we can get that back, the civil service, to that size at a substantial saving. Foreign aid, reducing the amount that we're spending on the foreign aid budget, getting on top of asylum issues and asylum hotel costs and so on. And we really need to do this because the country is living beyond its means. We are piling up debt. The servicing costs on that debt alone at the moment are £100 billion a year. That's the interest. That's twice what we spend on defence. And if we carry on the way we are, we're going to end up in a fairly dark place. And there needs to be a party at least, and it is the Conservative Party, that will take fiscal responsibility very seriously.
Except you had the chance, didn't you, to take it very seriously and not to play politics, but to help Keir Starmer pass his welfare cuts, and you didn't do it.
Well, there were reasons for that, and one of those reasons was that welfare reform should be carried out in a considered and principled way. And the way that those reforms, which didn't go far enough, incidentally, but the way they were constructed was really a case of Rachel Reeves being desperate prior to the spring statement to find some savings to try and rebuild some headroom that she'd lost through.
But it was quite a lot of savings. It would have been £5.5 billion by the end of the Parliament. Substantial sums, and actually proportionally quite a lot of what you would be seeking to save on an annual basis. So, I mean, I put it to you again, you could have, whatever your misgivings about the circumstances surrounding them, you could have voted for those reforms, but you chose not to.
As I say, the way it came about was that Rachel Reeves, right at the last minute, needed to find some additional headroom when she was having her discussions with the OBR.
But that doesn't matter, does it, Simo?
Well,
I mean,
the
fact is that it was there on the table for you to support, and you didn't support it. So people will say, actually, you're not really that serious.
Well, if the choices that are being made in the welfare space are driven by rebuilding headroom and doing it at the last minute, you tend to take decisions that are not considered and principled. And when you come to welfare, and I speak as a former Secretary of State for DWP, it's important that you take that measured and principled approach and you don't just scrabble around to make some quick savings at the end. And that was part of the story as to why it completely unravelled. And in fact, if you remember, they came forward with one set of savings, and then when the numbers weren't quite right, the word went out to DWP to find another little squeeze at the end, and another decision was taken. That's not the way to run a welfare policy.
What were the savings then that you didn't approve of?
Well, there was an approach to the changes in the gateway onto some of these benefits, which was simply a case of freezing benefits and so on, that, as I say, were about pulling a quick lever to make quick savings, rather than fundamentally...
With respect, isn't that exactly what you're talking about? A quick lever for quick savings. That's what we need, isn't it?
We're looking at fundamental reform. And if you take something like personal independence payments, for example, when we were in office, we were we had a public consultation on reforms to that benefit, which would have included, for example, far more better targeting of the money that's being paid out through those benefits into, in some cases, treatments, or some cases making sure there's a better match between the needs of somebody with a disability and the additional costs and what they're being provided with.
So on the
in order
payments,
to save money and be
who would lose
to
them?
Well, so going forward, we will be looking at those kind of conditions like mild depression, anxiety, ADHD, and conditions like that, where what we know is that there are better ways of providing support for people. Sometimes it's treatment. We also know that with a benefit like PIP, it's very blunt. You might just simply need a grab rail to get into a bath, for example, and yet you might under PIP end up getting thousands of pounds over a number of years, which is disproportionate to the actual requirement. So you need a fundamental look at the way in which these benefits are working. But as I say, one thing we haven't talked about at the moment is work. And we believe as a party that work should be absolutely central to the benefit system. There are people that do have mild anxiety and so on who will benefit from going to work. So it's good for the economy, but it's also good for them.
So they won't get the PIP payments. Another area you want to look at is, as I think you're going to say today, a fairer system means ensuring only British citizens can access welfare. So if you're, for instance, on indefinite leave to remain, you're a refugee or you have some other reason to be here, but you're claiming, for instance, universal credit, is it your plan that you just won't get it?
Yes. So if
and what
you
happens
are
to
not
those
a UK
people and those
citizen,
families then?
Well, if somebody is in this country, is not a UK citizen, and it may be that they can apply for that and become a UK citizen, that's all well and good. But if they're in the UK and they're not a UK citizen, then we believe that citizenship should mean something, and that would mean access to the benefit system. Now, people
I understand
would be in
that, but what
position
happens to those who then are here and their families? I mean, would they go to homeless shelters? What would be their fate?
People, they've come from other parts of the world and they would have an option to return to those other parts of the world.
Right, so that would be the intention, that if they want to carry on living, they have to go somewhere else.
I can't speak to everybody's individual circumstances. There are some that it wouldn't necessarily impact them, this change. There were some that it would impact them. It's some that would be able to adjust their working arrangements or perhaps work longer or whatever it may be as a response to this. But the point that I think is important is that UK citizenship should mean something. And I think when it comes to the benefit system, I think most people in this country feel that it's right and proper, that it is there for UK citizens. We spend a huge amount of money on it, and we are going to end up as an economy in a very fragile, I think dangerous situation if we continue to spend beyond our means. So we are talking now about the things that the other parties should be talking about but are not, which is getting on top of spending and making those savings.
But a lot of people may well agree with you about British citizenship, but they will also be concerned that actually just on a practical, never mind the morality of it, just on a practical measure, if you make people who are here, and the Telegraph today claims 470,000 fewer people would be allowed to claim universal credit under these plans, about 6% of the total claimants. It is reasonable, isn't it, in a practical point of view, to ask what on earth happens to them, but actually whether they wouldn't become, in a different way, a drain on the state.
Well, it's a very simple, straightforward policy. Is a very clear dividing line that we're setting out here. This would be something we would do across the course of the next Parliament, so over a 5-year period.
But you haven't been able to tell me what happens to these people.
Situation. Well, no, I think I have, with respect. I think I've said that, firstly, it may not affect some in as much as their work and life circumstances may not be impacted. There may be others that are, but then they would have the decisions that they would take around whether to, for example, get different jobs or work longer, or indeed, in some cases, if they're not applying for UK citizenship, to return to other countries. And I think UK citizenship really should mean something here. And when it comes to access to our benefit system, I don't think it's unreasonable to take that position. In terms of numbers, I mean, the kind of reforms that we brought in when we were in power, you mentioned 470,000 people here. The work capability assessment reforms we brought through saw 450,000 fewer people through time going on to long-term sickness and disability benefits, for example. The numbers are quite large, but the fact that they're quite large means that the amounts of money that the taxpayer is paying is just simply unsustainable. And if you want to get a grip on that, these are the kind of decisions that you must take.
To Mel Stride in Manchester, thank you.
Thank you.
It's 18 minutes to 8. Snoopy